Good morning, Opening Pathways viewers. This is Tom Lenoble. It's great to have you on the show today. I have someone I'm excited to share with you today. Shelton Banks is here, and he is the CEO of Rework Training. And we're going to learn a lot from Shelton today. Shelton, thank you for joining Opening Pathways.
Tom, thanks for having me and excited to be here.
Good. So I have some questions for you today. First of all, in your answering this question, tell us a little bit about rework training, but I also want to know what sparked the idea for you to start it.
Yeah, so probably friends and family. So I grew up in Chicago in a low-income neighborhood on the south side of Chicago. I'm not didn't take the traditional path, so a high school dropout, no college degree. And somebody, opened the door for me to get my foot into the door of corporate America, and I ran with it. And so fast forward in my career, I ended up at two different tech companies. And, I had friends and family that would see me, now traveling, right? Kind of broke out of the hood is basically the best way to put it. And so now they would see me on Instagram traveling to different places. And one day a friend said, how are you doing? Like, what are you doing, dude? Like, how did you either selling drugs or whatever you're doing? I want you to, teach us how to do it. And so, I did the traditional thing. I referred them, through the ATS system, and they end up getting the interview, but did not get the job. And that happened a few times with a few different friends. And one day I just took the time and said, like, "Hey, man, what are y'all saying at these interviews, right?" Because I respected them. I thought that they had more hustle than me, right? I was a lazy sales. I was just work smarter, not harder type of salesperson. And so I'm like, man, what are you all saying? And so I took the time one day to ask the questions, and I'll never forget this answer where I asked the guy. They asked the question like, "Hey, what's one of your biggest weaknesses?" And his answer verbatim was, "I don't have any. Sorry." And I was just like, "Oh my God." Like, you said this at an interview? He was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Bro, you okay." Like, And so from that moment, it was just like, man, how can I, help? I was just honestly trying to help this one person, and this one person end up, help them. He got a job, but then he went to go tell other people, like, "Hey, man, you got to go." And from there, it became like a ripple effect of that. That's kind of what led me into like, man, this I like this, right? Like this
There's
I'm
something
feeling
here, right? There's
yeah,
something to
something
do
here,
here.
something here.
Good, good, good. So let's go back a little bit. I'm interested to know about the backstory. Like, what early days someone had an influence over you that you broke out of what you describe? Who was that?
Yeah, her name was Latanya Robinson. She worked at JP Morgan Chase. And actually no, before that, Erica Wells, who worked at a small bank, it's PNC now. It's called National City at the time in Chicago. And she kind of had this same gritty, like, so she did have a degree, but she was from where I was from. And it was probably like the first time I saw somebody kind of be themselves. Like I can, and, she knew where to do it and how to do it, but she was herself around me, right? And it was in this corporate environment, and it was just like, and she would push me. She's like, "Hey, man, you need to come on," like, and it wasn't like she pushed me in a way that wasn't like the traditional way of like, college to like it wasn't like I had managers like, you need to go back to school, and it was like, I'm 21, I got bills and stuff now, like school's not for me, right? And so she pushed me in a way that just kind of challenged, just like, hey, you don't have to have a college degree to be educated. You can be like, but you got to work, and so I took that and ran with it. It was just like I became a sponge on the wall to almost everything. And I was determined, like, hey, you if I don't say I don't have a college degree, you are going to assume that I have one, and I'm going to make it really hard for people like to deny, the fact that I'm in this room and I'm good.
Yes, life's university.
Yeah, life's university.
Life's
Yeah.
university. Yeah, sometimes it's the best teacher, right? So who doubted you most when you started and how did you handle that?
Ooh, man, who doubted me? Oh man, the doubt. So, how far back you want to go, Tom? Like, I mean, so So I guess uh family, which was probably the biggest motivator. I mean, I think I like when people doubt me, right? Because it's just like I get in this kind of like prove a point mode, which is sometimes good, sometimes bad. But I think family probably, doubted the most early on because again, like I had this non-traditional path, and then like, my family, and I think a lot of families, it was just like this notion like, you need to go get your education, and because I didn't, it's just like, what are you doing, dude? Like you all right, sure you got a job at a bank, but you don't have a degree, and so somebody's gonna take that. And it was just like, nah, I'm about to work hard so nobody doesn't take that.
Yeah,
And then when I transitioned out of the banking industry and got into tech, it was a new thing. And they're like, what are you doing? Like you left a good paying job at a bank, and now you're in this tech thing. And it was Groupon of all places before Groupon went public, and so they were just like, "You're selling coupons, dude? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is, what are you doing?" And so it's just kind of like that, man. It was like, bro, you making bad choices, you know. And it was this determination of like, I would never go back to my grandparents' house and ask for money, because if I do, it's gonna be, they're gonna just grill me like, oh, you see, you're here because you made bad life decisions. And so, that was probably one of the biggest motivators of just like
yeah,
my ego and my family, just like, I'm not determined to go back. But I think, I mean, just plenty of people along the way of, I think I've always, I've gotten better sometimes ish of like challenging kind of like this is the way we've done it. Just because I'm like, man, the way you've done it doesn't work for
yes,
everybody, right? And so there's been plenty of points throughout my career of like, I may have talked a certain way, right? And just like, oh, you're too relaxed. And it's like, I'm gonna be relaxed. And like if people don't like it, then I guess I mean you know, I'm not gonna use this system. Like I'm not good at this number system, so I'm gonna figure out this other way. And so yeah, doubters, man.
yeah,
What?
yeah. Yeah, some of my biggest achievements in life is when someone told me that I couldn't do something. And
Yeah,
that's not only been work related, that's been health related. I don't know what happened early with me, but when someone says to me, you can't do something, my first reaction is, watch this.
yep,
Right? So,
yep,
what personal risk did you take that others never saw?
man. I mean, I think this nonprofit. So the last job before this nonprofit was at Sprout Social, a startup, and my wife was pregnant, and so it's like, all right, you're gonna go. And again, like I was kind of ignorant to it of like, people like, "Yeah, a nonprofit, dude. Like, do they even make money? Like, how are you gonna make it? Like, you better work for free? Like, you're gonna work for a nonprofit?" And day one, it was just me and a guy, Harrison Iran, who also came from Sprout Social. It's like, here's this idea, and like, how long is it gonna last? You gonna, what do I mean, I'm grateful that I got a supportive wife that was just like, all right, like, I'm gonna try, like, you all right, But that was probably one of the biggest risks, just because I had a newborn along the way. Um, and just like venturing into a world of like the unknown, right? Of like, I'm going from a role I'm really good at, of like I'm selling and I'm bringing in and controlling what I bring in based on how I perform, to now a world of, I kind of had the same notion, but it was just like a lot of unknowns, and quickly found out that the social impact nonprofit world is one of the slowest industries to be a part of, because everybody, it is technology adverse, and it's getting better, but like, man, that looking back, it's probably one of
Yeah,
you know the biggest, craziest. What they say, every person that starts their own business is partly insane anyway. Like
yeah.
you're
Got a little
signing up for,
gene, got a little gene off anyway, right? Yeah.
man, just a little bit, right? And so, yeah, man, that was probably one of the biggest risks that I had. I think I've taken in my career.
What identity did you have to let go of to take the next step on the path?
Yeah, I think the ego, right? I think I had to let go of kind of like this, the prove you wrong mentality, just a little bit, right? Because now going to a space of like, it's a lot of stuff that I don't know, and I can't be, yeah, I can't take, I'm gonna take risk, but like I can't take the same ones based on trying to prove a point to somebody else. And I think it was kind of one of those moments of I think I saw a quote or something where it was just like the same tools you use to survive are not the same tools you will use to thrive. And it was just kind of like this moment of like, you know, the survival. I kind of like the survival mode, right? Of like, all right, man, I'm proving people wrong, and I gotta, make ends meet. And it was just like, that's not your story anymore, to the extent of you can't use that, as it shouldn't be your motivating factor anymore. It's not gonna, you're gonna keep hitting this wall of like almost self-sabotage because, you know, you're in survival mode in the era where you can actually start to thrive. And so I think that's one of them. And then the other one was just the delegation piece, of if you're trying to build something that's scalable, like you can't always do it, And so like that sales individual contributor, I'm a closer. And so it's like, oh, if I'm not in the room, it's not getting closed, is my mentality. Like I'm used to being in the room and the person driving and even when I managed at a pretty large bank and I had a team, even then, like I didn't have this mentality. Like it was moments where I still was very hands on versus like the delegation piece for the sake of it, right? So, I think that mentality of just like picking up this new toolkit of, like, all right, how do you delegate? How do you
Yes,
actually empower people, man, is one I had to
it's an
pick up.
art.
Yeah, definitely an art.
Definitely an
Definitely.
art. So tell me, what did the early days in the nonprofit teach you about trust?
Man, early days in a nonprofit space and trust, man. I think there's more good in humanity. Like I feel like it taught, and again, like transitioning from the world of sales, where and it's not as doggy dog commission oriented as some people think. It has its elements, right? Of like you know playing the game. Um, but like you know and when I say that, right, so like as a good salesperson, if you're on a team, do we share secrets on how we get things done? Like yes and no, right? Like if I'm having a killer year and I figured out this process that helps drive revenue and is making me money, and somebody else on the team is like, hey, what are you doing? I'm gonna say something, but it's not gonna be it, right? It's like, KFC Colonel Sanders, like, how are you making this recipe? Like,
There's
I
a
got the chicken.
secret ingredient, right?
Yep, right. I'll tell you what, I went to the store, I bought these, ingredients, but I'm not gonna tell you the order, how much, none of that, right? But like in the nonprofit space, man, it's interesting because people try they help, they give information. And so like, and it was weird because it was like, all right, man, uh I came from this, and I see this a lot with people of like they're like, oh, I can't, I'm not gonna tell you everything because my IP, right? I got this intellectual property and I can't tell, can't share. And I feel like the nonprofit, it taught me a few things, right? To trust people a little bit more, but also that like intellectual property has like the shelf life of a banana, dude. Like it's just like as soon as you think it, like it's somebody else is probably thinking it. And like the idea of hoarding it because you don't trust people, is like, come on, right? And so it's weird because like I got to this space of like, I work with people in the nonprofit space, and I I don't even remember the last time like I brought up the word NDA, right? Of like I got this, you can't disclose anything I'm about to tell, just because, you know, the nonprofit space taught me to trust people. It's like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna help you out, and if you steal it and make it better, then shoot, I may come work for you because I'm trying to figure it out still, And if you don't, and you're like, oh, let me come help you, like it just put me in a different state of mind, and it's been awesome to be here because I feel like it's created this reciprocal effect of like, you know, I think different to help somebody out, and it just comes back in some way, shape, form, or fashion just because I was,
Amazing.
trusting enough to put it out there in the world.
It's amazing how that happens. Tell me about a risky decision you made that paid off and what gave you the courage to take the action.
Man, oh, this these are loaded questions, style. Like, oh, risky decisions, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess on that, I got a lot more that didn't pay off than did pay off. I think from a nonprofit standpoint, man, I think this. So COVID happened, and before COVID, we were a Chicago-based organization where in-person training, and that's what we did, right? It was ran on the weekends. It was this model that we had. It was good. It was working, right? So cohorts of 15 to 20 people, and in person Saturdays and Sundays, and we were paying them a stipend to come through the program, and so we had a nice cadence. And of course COVID happened, and we had to shift our model. But we instead of shifting our model to just be the same of like weekends now virtual only in Chicago, we kind of just did this. I'm just gonna market, right? I'm just gonna just say, hey, I help people, and not gonna put a cap on it. And just like, hey, whoever needs help, I'm here. And it boomed. We had people from all over, like literally all over. The small nonprofit in Chicago team of at the time, maybe three people full time, are now getting applications from all over the world of folks that are like, hey, I want your help. We need jobs, help us. And so that was a risk, because one, we didn't know like the response, and to some extent it kind of broke the business a little bit, right? Of like, I have no idea how to get through. We had 11,000 applications, so we went from only taking a couple hundred applications a year to 11,000 applications in 1 year. And of course we didn't get through, filter through all those people, had no way how to disengage, and no automation, and just so many things that we didn't have. um but then it taught us, like, so we attempted, we helped as many people as we could that year. And the following year we said, like, all right, great, we can't serve everybody around the world for many reasons, right? Like, ran into some GDRP stuff in Europe, and like it was just a mess. But then we then just said, hey, let's focus on the United States. And while it hurt us in the aspect of like, I missed this learning aspects of the grassroots element of like how most small nonprofits grow. It streamlined us to be able to help more people, right? And kind of have this national, small but mighty national brand that you know still have residual pains that we're working through and learning. But from just like I think when I compare us to other smaller nonprofits that like started at the exact same time that aren't around, I think it catapulted us to a space where people and brands, especially in the tech industry, they know who we are because we were noisy enough and took a risk.
So, I want to take a moment here for you to share with our viewers um, about the nonprofit and tell us exactly what the nonprofit is doing, what the name of it is exactly, and how people find it if they're interested in learning more about it.
Yeah, so Rework Training, we're a workforce development nonprofit organization, and so our biggest goal is to help people get jobs. Like that's what we care about most at the end of the day. We use language, and so like, who do we serve? We like to call people, and again, I'm from a local income neighborhood, and so words like underserved, underprivileged, it didn't resonate with me, because it was like, to the point of the ego. I'm like, I'm not under anything, and so if you call me an underdog, like, I got to prove a point. And so we use the words untapped and overlooked. And we found that that applies to a lot of people. Like, that is one of those internal things where I'm like, I'm untapped and overlooked. And so we serve a pretty broad population of, like, the youngest person I've ever seen to come through the program was probably 17. The oldest was 65 that came through the program. And then as far as educational range, we've seen people with doctorate degrees all the way to having nothing. And so we've seen kind of like a broad spectrum of individuals who identify as untapped and overlooked, and majority of the time either unemployed or underemployed. And our main focus is to teach sales as a life skill, right? So like, if you are looking for a job, like, prospecting as a salesperson is you figuring out who to talk to, the right person to talk to. Prospecting as a job seeker is like you figuring out what skills align with the company you're trying to serve. Doing a demo as a salesperson is you actually showing off the product that you're selling. Doing a demo as a interview is you going on an interview and showcasing your skills, right? And so like there's so many similarities. The biggest one being, most HR professionals teach like, hey, when you go out and interview, you have to sell yourself. And so, our logic is like, hey, who would you rather learn job seeking skills from? A person that has never closed a deal in their life or a person that's used to closing, right? And so that's kind of our logic. And it just so happens because, I came from the tech industry and a lot of my board comes from the tech industry that usually majority of times over 60% of the times that individuals usually get jobs as business development reps, sales development reps in the tech industry. And since we've been doing this for 7 years, we've helped now over 1,000 people get jobs that have gone from on average making around 8,000 a year as a salary or unemployed to now making on average $63,000 a year, as a full-time employee in the tech industry. And they do it fast. So
Wow.
the average time to get a job is like 63 days. So in 63 days, I could take a person from 8,000 to 60 plus thousand in the tech industry. And since we've been doing this, 91% of the folks that we help are still in the industry making
Mate,
money and growing. Yeah. And so,
awesome.
you know,
Really cool. Yeah. So tell me, what impact are you most proud of? And I'm not talking about the public one, I'm talking about the personal one. What impact have you made that you're most proud of?
yeah. Oh man. Probably too, and it's just centered around family. I mean, friends and family, all right? So I think, you know, again, I kind of started with, I grew up low income, and a lot of the people I know same, and a lot of those people I grew up with are now in the tech industry making money because they, trusted me enough to come through the program. It was pulling teeth to get them through, but they came through, and now they're in different places. And I think a lot of times where people, get out of the hood or make it, you almost have no choice, but you end up leaving people behind, right? Because you're like,
Yes.
because they end up either trying to mooch off you or what, just not wanting to accept. But in my case, a lot of folks didn't. A lot of folks came along, and trusted me enough, and are now in the tech industry. And so now it's like when, we go out and eat, we went from being the folks that like, are looking to the right of the menu when we order because we're trying to figure out the pricing. And when the bill comes, everybody has the calculator out trying to figure out how much we exactly owe to now actually enjoying enjoying ourselves and having a good time when we go out.
Good.
And so, and as that's grown kind of incrementally as far as just like the ripple effect of, friends and their friends and, so that's huge for me. And I think the other big one is just more personal. My wife and my kids. So, my wife went from similar story as me. No college. Well, she got a college degree, but just this similar background. But now she's also in the tech industry, doing the same thing that I did before I started. Here at Rework,
Great.
and
Great.
so
So
the ripple.
as you grow, and this organization gets bigger, how do you make sure your values and the values of the organization don't get compromised?
Yeah, by staying in the weeds. I know sometimes as leadership is just like how fast can I get out the weeds, but I don't ever think that it'll be a moment where I think that doing something here will be above me, right? Like even now, I still go in and people they tell me to stop. They're like, hey man, stop trying to train classes and stop hopping. But like just being, with the people, not treating individuals like numbers, right? And some of that as you scale, it's harder to do, right? Where it's like you got to process, and there are plenty of people now that are in our ecosystem that I don't know their names per se, and they get jobs, and I'm like, man, didn't touch them at all, but I'm accessible, right? And so if they wanted to, if I'm like in the mix, kind of walking the hallway, so to speak. And I think I don't think that's gonna change, right? I think that's the part that I enjoy most of
Good.
moments where I get to see and be hands on with individuals. Don't get to do it as much, but like having that pulse on the organization every now and then makes this job enjoyable and helps us to keep going in the right
Yes.
direction.
Yes. What's your boldest vision for rework training in the next 5 years? What's going to happen?
Yeah, the next 5 years. So I'm trying to get our as more nonprofits slowly start to kind of go out the window because of funding and this kind of like the climate. I want to be able to take over at least five other nonprofits where they say like, hey, we had no sales is a life skill program. Like we want your program. Come stand up your program with us, and they become part of Rework, right? And then in doing that, we triple our impact and get to how most 20-year nonprofits look in 15 years. We will look like a well-established nonprofit of helping triple what we've helped now is the big 5 year vision for us.
Yeah. When things get tough, what keeps Shelton inspired?
Man, what things get tough, you know oh man, that's a hard question to answer, not because things don't get tough, but like, man, I'm like, I started from the bottom, right? And so it's just like, what's tough? It's just like
Uh,
everything's workable, right? It's just like, and it's interesting because when I was at the bottom, it wasn't like I wasn't happy, right? I found happiness at the bottom and contentment at the bottom. And so I don't think necessarily, you know, things get tough. It's just like, keep going. Like,
Yes.
keep going. I got this motto, get this work. It's like, all right, we about to just keep working.
Yes.
That's the motto.
Yeah, I think we can learn that happiness is a choice. Uh, Happiness isn't something someone gives to you, it's something that comes from within, and it can be there no matter what might be happening in life at the moment, as hard as that sounds. I'm interested, Shelton, if your younger self were listening to this podcast and reviewing it, what would you tell him?
Man, for my younger self, like, lose the ego. you know keep the confidence, lose the ego. Like, hey, you got something, and like, don't let your ego get in the way of you learning faster, right? Like, so, like, sure, you're proving a point, but do it for the right reason, do it for the people, not for
Yeah.
your ego.
Yeah. What would you tell somebody that's just getting started, somebody that's thinking about going down the nonprofit path, somebody that's an emergent leader that's thinking that's their calling? What would be your words of wisdom for them?
Yeah, build your network, right? Don't do it alone. I think sometimes, again, back to the ego of like, we have an idea and you're like, oh, I don't want nobody to steal my idea, and so you hold it tight and close to the chest. But in the world of social impact, man, you gotta open up.
Yeah.
Open up, and if that means like, hey, I got this idea and I can't execute, and so I'm gonna give it and help somebody else is gonna help me, and they may get the credit. Like, it's not about credit. Like, if you're here for the credit, sorry, like, you should stay on the other side. But like, if you come to social impact just getting started, just open up, right? Open up, be willing to go, work on the other organizations until you get your rhythm, your flow. It's a
Yeah.
Still Like an Artist. Familiar with that book, Still Like an Artist? Like, hey, sometimes you got to play cover music until you figure out your own sound. And so, play some cover music first, until you figure out your own sound.
Yeah. Yes. 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 Love this. What's When I hear your story, I'm interested in knowing what one challenge you might leave my listeners with as we finish up here today.
Yeah. I think getting out of like, challenge the traditional thinking. Like I said, that thinking of like, this is how things were. Somebody gave me an opportunity, gave me a shot, and they gave me a shot despite the fact, of the what's usually on the job description of like, you gotta have this. And so I think I'm so effective because I resonate with the folks that usually social impact is trying to help. I think oftentimes social impact, it's like, oh, we need to have people with, PhDs and degrees in human, and it's just like, no, you don't. You need to have folks that are willing to help, and so be willing to take a chance on the me's of the world, right? That have the potential, but also be willing to support them, knowing that they got plenty of room. But take a chance on them, give them a career path, help put a vision in front of them that they can reach
Yes.
out to and own something.
I love this. I do a lot of work around risk and resilience, and your story here is all about risk and resilience. I thank you for it. Shelton Banks, CEO of Rework Training. Tell us where we can find you.
Yep.
Maybe somebody here who's moved by your story today and wants to donate. How do we find you?
Yeah, so visit Rework Training, reworktraining.org, and 100% look at some of the impact stories of folks that have changed their lives on the website. And please, $1 donation is like $5 to us as far as the investment that a person makes. But then personally, come find me on LinkedIn at Shelton Banks. I love to connect with people. That's me keeping my foot on the pulse of meeting new people and learning from new people. And so either on LinkedIn at Shelton Banks or reworktraining.org.
Great. Shelton, thank you for being with me today.
Tom, thank you for having me.
Yes, and to my viewers, this is Tom Lenoble with Opening Pathways, and I'll see you next time.